Namaste everyone. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
It is truly my pleasure to be here with you this evening. What we're going to be doing today is several things. Of course, we're going to be doing a shloka recitation, and we will be looking at a verse from Bhagavad Gita, and it will be chapter 5, verse 25. And we will have a little bit of shloka recitation, again, just about 3 times or so, because it's very auspicious to actually hear the Sanskrit. So I'm not going to do this in meter just yet. I just want to go over the actual pronunciation of the words with you. So I'll do this somewhat slowly, word by word. Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishyaha Kshina Kalmashaha China Dvaidha Yaratmanaha Sarvabhuta Hite Rataha. So that's how you pronounce each of these words. And I'll say the translation now. This is, of course, Prabhupada's translation, his original translation of Bhagavad Gita. One who is beyond duality and doubt, whose mind is engaged within, who is always busy working for the welfare of all sentient beings, and who is free from all sins, achieves liberation in the Supreme. And again, this is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, verse 25. And now what we'll do is, again, our actual recitation of the mantra, and we'll do this in Anushtubh meter. And I have several devotees here with me in the actual temple, so we'll all recite together. Labhante Brahma Nivanam Rishaya Kshina Kalmasha China Dvaidhayadatmana Sarvabhuta Hiterata Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishaya Kshina Kalmasha China Dvaidhayadatmana Sarvabhuta Hiterata Labhante Brahma Nirvanam Rishaya Kshina Kalmasha China Dvaidhayadatmana Sarvabhuta Hiterata. Very good. And again, the translation is, one who is beyond duality and doubt, whose mind is engaged within, who is always busy working for the welfare of all sentient beings, and who is free from all sins, achieves liberation in the Supreme. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, verse 25. So again, yet again, another truly beautiful verse from Bhagavad Gita. And as I explained before, before each Dharma in practice, now that we've been doing these beautiful shloka recitations, and then commenting on a verse from Bhagavad Gita, of course, I'll go through the verses that are upcoming until I finally find a verse that I think is very good for what we are doing with Dharma in practice. And that is verses that are especially practical. Of course, Bhagavad Gita is the most philosophical work imaginable. It's a philosophical dialogue. There are so many philosophical dialogues. Anyone who has seriously studied philosophy, you know that this is one of the best ways to convey philosophical ideas. And more people have written such dialogues than most people know. We know that there are the Platonic dialogues, for example. I forget the exact number. I think Plato wrote about 27 dialogues. But then there are other dialogues in ancient Greek Aristotle is said to have written dialogues, but they weren't very good, so none of them survived, which is very sad. His other works, his notes, survived. But this is a historic fact. He also wrote dialogues, but they couldn't compare to Plato. Augustine wrote dialogues within medieval Christianity among the scholastic philosophers. Many, too many people to even mention, wrote dialogues. And what's meant by dialogue? It's precisely this. Conversation, but a philosophical conversation. And then we come up to more modern times. David Hume wrote dialogues. Berkeley wrote dialogues, and on and on and on. So there are many dialogues, philosophical dialogues, that have been written over the years, but none of them compare to this first of all dialogues within the context of the Kali Yuga, and that is Bhagavad Gita. So, indeed, the entire work is supremely philosophical on the one hand. On the other hand, it's also very practical. This is yet another reason why the Bhagavad Gita has been so incredibly popular in recent days. It's been very, very popular. And, it's interesting. Even now, you can see there are people who have written books. The Bhagavad Gita's teachings on management, the Bhagavad Gita's teachings on military strategy, and on and on and on, all sorts of things. So indeed, there's a lot of practical knowledge that's here, and this is one of these verses that speaks to us today. So let's go through this a little bit, because there's a lot that's here, actually. So Lord Krishna begins with, one who is beyond duality and doubt. And that's the first clause. So let's deal with this very specifically, and we'll deal with this in order. First of all, what is meant by being beyond duality? Well, what's meant by this statement is this very specifically. We know that many people speak about how the material world, the world around us, is indeed a realm of duality. And we find this in all of the ancient religious paths, certainly all throughout Sanatana Dharma, Buddhism, Taoism, so many ancient paths that were there. Arguably, indeed, even Plato in his dialogues speaks about this a little bit. So this is something that is a common theme. To this day, of course, there are even some modern spiritual people who, without really understanding what's meant by this term duality, will try to comment on it from a more modern perspective. But what exactly does Krishna mean by this term duality? Well, what is meant by duality is this schizophrenic double-pulling motion that occurs within the psyche of the human being specifically. This is what is meant by duality. And truthfully, arguably, this phenomenon can also be translated even to animals, actually. You even see some duality in animals as well. But let's stick to human beings very specifically, because that's what we can especially relate to. Well, what is meant by the statement that I just made? Well, it's this. That rather than being in a unitive state of awareness and consciousness, instead we are torn. We are torn very often, interestingly, not just two directions, but multiple directions. And we're torn from within. When we speak about all of these, especially internal problems that modern people have, I'm confused. I don't know what to do with my life. I am being dragged in one direction. My senses want to drag me in one direction, but my intelligence wants me to go in a different direction, a higher direction, and on and on and on. All of these conflictions that are there within. This is ultimately what is meant by duality. That is, that we are pulled in at least two directions. Duality is a very good word to use because it is talking about opposites. But in actuality, of course, we know that sometimes, we're not just pulled in opposite directions, but in multiple directions. And we don't know what to do. We don't know exactly what direction to go in. Then on top of that, that is the deeper understanding. Then on top of that, there is the more common understanding of, indeed, the opposites that we see in this world. And indeed, Krishna does speak about this. He does speak about, suffering and happiness, and how they come and go like the winter and summer seasons. So there are indeed actual opposites as well, where indeed, when we're in this world, how do we act within this world? Well, we are repelled from those things that we do not want. We are attracted to those things that we do want. And that's a natural thing. Indeed, every living being has those two motions of decision-making. That is, there's something that they want. What do they want? They want food. They want a mate. They want wealth. They want shelter. They are attracted to those things. And then, of course, conversely, they are repelled from those things that they want to get away from. Someone wants to harm them. Someone wants to harm you, you run away. Bad weather is coming, you run away from that bad weather, etc., etc. So we understand, as the Bhagavad Gita explains, that there are literal opposites as well. And what is the idea of going beyond duality? Well, let's deal with this in reverse order, first dealing with the actual opposites. Number one, we need to understand that despite the fact that we are living in a world of opposites, we ourselves transcend all of the opposites. And indeed, there's nothing wrong with desire in and of itself. So as I was saying, this repelling versus attraction toward, there's nothing wrong with that in itself. Where the difficulty comes is, on what basis are we making such decisions? Oh, I want to go toward this thing that I desire and away from this thing that I do not desire. Again, that's a natural motion. But the question is, what is compelling me to make those decisions? So in illusion, of course, it tends to be the wrong things. It tends to be the wrong things. This is why Lord Krishna also explains that essentially what is nighttime for a common person is like daytime for the sage, and vice versa. So, indeed, why we are making those decisions are the important thing. Why are we drawn to something? Why are we compelled to stay away from something? Well, if it's based upon illusion and materialism, then of course we will make the wrong decisions on both counts. But if, on the other hand, we are truly spiritual, virtuous, good, sincere, well-meaning people, then when we make those decisions, what will we be attracted toward? Well, ideally, we will be attracted toward that which is likewise. In other words, we'll be attracted to the real. We will want that which is healthy. We will want that which is spiritual. We will want that which is the eternal, etc., etc., etc. You see where I'm going with this. And then again, if we are spiritual, truly spiritual, what will we be repelled by? What is it that we will want to run away from? In many cases, the very opposite of what the normative individual would run toward, you see. We're walking down the street. As we're walking, oh, here's a bar. Well, the normative person would be attracted to that. But as spiritual individuals, we are repelled. As we walk by, we look into the window, we see darkness, and it's not something that we're interested in any way. So indeed, this is how we are to understand duality, as not merely that the duality itself is bad. No, on the contrary. On the contrary, they come of their own accord, like the winter and summer seasons, happiness, distress, etc. Rather, what we are to do is to approach duality with transcendental vision, and in that way, truly transcending the duality, thus beyond duality. So this is what Krishna is explaining with this. And then, who is also beyond doubt. Beyond doubt. So this is something that is actually repeated quite a few times in the Vedic scriptures. Doubt is actually not a good thing, and it is actually a sign that an individual has not made spiritual progress. Especially if, maybe, they just picked up a Bhagavad Gita for the first time yesterday and they read the first, 10 verses or something. Well, all right, that's understandable. You barely even know what a Bhagavad Gita is, you know nothing about Vedic culture, etc. But once an individual has been practicing this path for some time, for several years, and truly reading, truly studying, truly hearing pravachana, truly hearing sacred talks about Sanatana Dharma, and more importantly, truly practicing, doing meditation, trying to live a life of virtue, having satsang, having good association, etc. Well, then at that point, it should get to the point where once a person has committed, and you see we make this distinction, you're still learning? No, it's of course understandable that you're going to have doubts. But once you have come to that point where you have made this decision that, yes, this is my path. Yes, I have read the Bhagavad Gita and I understand who is the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita. Not just some guy who decided to write a book, but rather these are the divine words of the divine, of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And once I have been practicing for some time and I see that, yes, this works, I meditate and yes, I feel peace and I begin to feel closer to God, etc., etc. But most importantly, once you have dedicated yourself to the path, at that point you don't have doubts. at that point, you can still have questions. Prashna. Prashna means questions. Indeed, I've been telling people this for, 35, 40 years. It's always fascinating how there is an entire Upanishad called the Prashna Upanishad, the Upanishad of questions. So we are encouraged to ask sincere questions. And of course, there's an entire etiquette, of how we ask these questions. We never ask questions with arrogance or anything like this, but no, very sincerely, with humility, we ask questions. That is perfectly fine. But to doubt is not something that's good. And what is the evidence of this? Oh, this is just Acharyaji saying this. What's the evidence of this? It's called the Bhagavad Gita. It's Arjuna who is in a debilitated emotional state because he is doubting. And this is the thing. Let me just state this bluntly. He is Arjuna. He doesn't have a right to doubt. He is one of the Pandavas. He is someone who has seen gods face to face. He is someone who has been steeped in Dharma all of his life. He is someone who, even as he is going through this doubt, he has God himself sitting next to him as his charioteer. So indeed, this is why Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita, sings the Bhagavad Gita, is to relieve Arjuna of this debilitated state of doubting that which at this point in his life he should not be doubting. Again, if Arjuna was Joe Schmo, who never knew anything about anything Vedic, Joe Schmo from the Bronx 5,000 years ago, and he suddenly finds himself on this battlefield of Kurukshetra. Well, all right, then he has a reason, possibly. But no, this is Arjuna. So this is why Krishna is helping him for 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita to alleviate himself from this doubt. So, one who is beyond duality and doubt. Now let's go on. Whose mind is engaged within. Oh, what does this mean? Pratyahara. Pratyahara is the word. What is pratyahara? For people who maybe haven't heard that word, this is one of the angas, one of the limbs of the yoga system. And what it means is withdrawal within. What it means is this process in which, rather than being focused outward on everything that's happening around us, and everything happening around us, meaning, interestingly, even our own mind. You see, there are some people who, they're very, very mental oriented. They're always thinking, and they'll sometimes make the mistake of thinking that they're practicing pratyahara, that they're practicing this going inward. Well, I'm living in my mind. Is that what it means? No, it's not what it means. On the contrary, it probably would have been better, actually, if you were focusing on the world around you, rather than living inside the recesses of your mind and the dark corners of your mind. That's not what's meant by pratyahara. What's meant by pratyahara is indeed to go beyond all of the senses. And for my students here, what's the sixth sense? There are the five senses that we know. What does all of Sanatana Dharma say is the sixth sense?
Manas?
Yes, manas, mind. So again, this is why I'm saying this, that it's not enough to just be a mental person constantly thinking. No, that's a sense also. We're to go beyond the senses and to withdraw within. So thus, one whose mind is engaged within. So that mind isn't just talking, but rather it's stilled. And now everything that you are is focused within. Now, what does that mean? Oh, that means all the truly spiritual activities that occur within the core of our being as we're practicing spirituality. That means meditation, that means contemplation, that means, as we mentioned, I believe in the last live stream that we did, Manasa Seva, so focusing on visualizing that we are serving God, any sort of truly spiritual process that occurs within the person. That's what's being spoken of. So in other words, what is Krishna saying here? All right, one who is beyond duality and doubt and whose mind is focused within in pure spirituality. Now let's go on. Who is always busy working for the welfare of all sentient beings. Now, this is indeed right in the center of this verse, and it is, to my mind, a very, very important clause. And again, for what we're speaking about and what we're doing specifically today, that is Dharma in practice. Very practical. So this is interesting. Again, what does Krishna say here? Does he say, oh yes, whose mind is engaged within and you're living in a cave? No. Who is always busy. Listen to these words. Busy working for the welfare of all sentient beings. And again, this is Prabhupada's original translation, 1972 Macmillan edition of Bhagavad Gita as it is. And it's the proper translation, indeed. So, indeed, now we're talking about, interestingly, seemingly being outward. First, we're talking about, and toward the end, I'll go through the progression of this, how this actually progresses with the entire verse. But first, let me just focus on this a little bit. Whose mind is engaged within. So first, we're talking about being inward. But now, from that foundation of having been inward, now we take that spiritual attainment that we've had within, now we go outward. Now we look around us, and what do we see? We see all the sentient beings who are around us in this world. And what does that mean? It's interesting. Not human beings, all sentient beings. So that's interesting. What is sentiency? Sentiency, in the English, from the Vedantic perspective, is a term that is synonymous with consciousness. So any being that has consciousness, i.e. who is sentient. What does this mean? Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita makes this very clear, as do so many of the Vedic scriptures. This was then copied, and we have to say this respectfully, this was copied by the Buddhists much, much, much later. And that is that, no, we are to think about the well-being of all sentient beings. That means a spider, that means an ant, that means a cat, that means a dog, that means a tree, that means the blades of grass, that means, of course, other human beings. Any beings who we find around us, we have to be conscious and aware of their welfare and their well-being. But more, again, how this is translated, Krishna does not mince words here. Who is always busy working for such welfare. So in other words, for an individual who is truly spiritual, i.e. who has transcended duality and doubt, who is steeped in a rich spiritual inner life. Now, what are they to do? They are to engage very busily, working very hard within the world itself to bring benefit to all sentient beings. Now, what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, it looks like several different things. It means that, first and foremost, anything that we do, even seemingly for ourselves spiritually. So what does that mean? We're doing a puja. We're doing a yajna. We're doing mantra meditation. We're doing anything like this. Are we doing it for ourselves such that we can grow spiritually? Well, of course. But more, every time we engage in such transcendental activities, there is a radiating presence of the transcendent in all things around us as well, such that any sentient being who is within our company also benefits. And more, as we continue to transform ourselves into spiritual beings, everywhere we travel, there is the same effect. That is, that it is a benediction to the world. So it means that. But it also means, indeed, doing everything that we can to help people. Again, the welfare of all sentient beings. What does that mean? Well, that means everything. And I have to be clear about this. Some people think it means one thing or the other. Some people think it means that, the welfare of all sentient beings. Okay, I'm going to volunteer at a soup kitchen. I'm going to give money to charity. I'm going to buy cans of food and bring it to help people. Does it mean that? Yes. But then some people think that this means only spiritually. I'm going to buy 100 copies of Bhagavad Gita as it is. I'll just save up money. I'll get inexpensive copies, buy them in bulk. And I'll go places and look for people who seem very nice, and I'll give them a Bhagavad Gita. Maybe speak with them, answer their questions, try to help them spiritually. And that's all that this means. Well, neither extreme is true. What it means to work for the welfare of all sentient beings is to help all sentient beings in every way that we can, in accordance with their needs. So I've said this before. You go to a place where, let's say, I'm in Omaha, Nebraska. That's where our temple is. And here we're very safe. We get a tornado here extremely rarely. I don't remember the last time a serious tornado has hit Omaha. But in the Midwest region, you get a lot of tornadoes, actually. Let's say that there's some small town somewhere, and they got leveled by a tornado. Well, all right, you say, that's terrible, that's horrible. 100 homes have been destroyed. People are living in the streets. They've lost everything. I'm going to go there and I'm going to help these people with a case of Bhagavad Gitas. Now, that's very nice. The sentiment is nice, but Dharma in practice. Practical. Is that a practical thing? No. Bring Bhagavad Gitas with you. You should always have them with you to give to people. But go there with 200 cans of food. Go there with blankets. Go there with several cases of water. Go there in such a way that you help them, that you truly help them. So indeed, when Krishna here says, who is always busy working for the welfare of all sentient beings, he means we help practically. He means that we help spiritually. We help in every way. Because this is the thing, again, practically. You go to a place that was just hit by a tornado, you get there and what you see, 100 homes have been reduced to rubble. Right now, those people need water, they need food, and they need blankets. Once they have recovered, then they're in a position to maybe think about spiritual things. But in the meantime, you help people however you can. And let's go on. And who is free from all sins. Oh, indeed, this is something that's very important, actually. And Prabhupada liked translating this as sins. And for some people, they don't like that word because it reminds them a little bit too much of Christianity, etc. No, it's a perfectly fine word, actually. I like the word. And all that it means is individuals who will knowingly do the wrong thing in order to either harm others or to harm themselves. That's all that is meant by sins, and thus produce bad karma. So for one who is freed from all sins, what this means more than anything is that they are free from the compulsion that is there to do wrong. This is what we are to become. When we become spiritual people, that's why spiritual people are the most virtuous people. You know, that's the idea, at least. Now, today, of course, it's confused. And why? Because everything is confused. What is good, what is bad. Today, everything seems confused. Really, it's not. It's never really been confused. They've tried to confuse us, but it's not confusing. What it means to be a spiritual person is you are someone who you don't want to do harm. You don't want to harm others. You don't want to take from others. You want to instead do good. It also means that you don't want to harm yourself. It means that you have freed yourself from vices. Very important. It means that you have freed yourself from drinking alcohol. It means that you have freed yourself from every drug imaginable. It means that you have freed yourself, and I would add this today, needless to say, you know, the more ancient gurus never had to think about such things. What am I going to say?
Video games.
Video games, pornography, etc., etc. Things that didn't really exist, 40, 50 years ago. You know, I tell people this as a joke, you know, I was a child and a young teenager in the 1970s. The only video game we had was Pong. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's 2 sticks and a ball that goes back and forth, and you kind of play tennis with it. That was all we had back then. And my parents actually got me one of those, and it was fun for about an hour, and then I don't think I ever played it again. But indeed, we have to free ourselves from these addictions and these things that just truly harm us, and harm us in so many different ways. So this is what it means to be free from all sins. And then, what is the result of all the above, everything that Lord Krishna has just said? Such an individual who does all this achieves liberation in the Supreme. Achieves liberation in the Supreme. And those last words, we have to take so seriously, as if they are written not just in concrete, not just in steel, as if they are written in titanium. And why? Because again, this is not just Joe Schmo, the wannabe author who says this. This is, not just anybody. This is God who is saying this. And when God says something like this, not only do we have to take it seriously, we have to understand it as a promise from God himself, who does not break his word. If a person does all the above, they will achieve liberation in the Supreme. That is, they will know God. They will know God. They will know God intimately. And once having achieved that, they will never know suffering again. So quickly, to just go through this again, just to sum up. First of all, interestingly, we begin with the mind and how one as a unit of consciousness, as an experiencer, relates to that which is outside of ourselves. That is, we have to go beyond duality and doubt. Then, having done that, you see it's a progression. Then we have to go within. We have to begin to meditate, to contemplate, to read the Vedic scriptures and have them be a part of our psyche of who we are, so whose mind is engaged within. Now, having done that, having done this preliminary spiritual work, such that what? We work on ourselves first. You know, again, I am reminded of that video, How Not to Save the World. First, we work on ourselves spiritually, and now we come to the next thing. Who is always busy working for the welfare of all sentient beings. That means that if you see a cat who is injured, you help the cat. That means if you see a plant that it looks like it hasn't been watered in weeks, you please give it some water. That means human beings, oh, of course, we help human beings. We help all who are around us. And who is free from all sins. What does this mean? Why is this a sequence? Because it actually is. So we first deal with our mental issues, duality and doubt. Then we begin to do meditation. Then we make that inward meditation manifest outward in that now we are helping people. And as a result of that very karma yoga itself, helping others, but especially, of course, helping them spiritually, then we are free from all anarthas, from all of those things that have kept us in illusion for so long. Now, as a result, there is the artha, there is the final goal. And what is that? We achieve liberation in God. So this is how we are to live. I've said this, and I'll end by saying this. I've said this several times with several of these verses. And in some cases, I didn't say it, but I thought it. And that is, I would recommend to people, make a printout of this verse. You know, actually, if you have a printer, try to make it in big words. Print it out and hang it up. Because this is the path. If you can do all these things, you will achieve what Lord Krishna says at the end. You will have liberation in the Supreme. So with that, I thank you all very much for listening to my pravachana, to my talk and my commentary on this beautiful verse from Bhagavad Gita. And we will end here with the talk. And with that, everyone, please take, as I always say, very, very good care of yourselves and those you love in every way. And namaste. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Good night, everyone.